It's 2025, and honestly, some PS3 RPGs still put modern games to shame. Today, we're looking at 10 PS3 RPGs that were way ahead of their time. From amazing stories to fun gameplay, these games hold up even now, and make a lot of today's games look kinda weak. Let's jump in. Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch is one of those PS3 RPGs that feels like a complete package. Visually unique, emotionally consistent, and pretty different from what most big RPGs were doing at the time. The first thing that stands out is the art style. It's hand-drawn and animated by Studio Ghibli, the same folks behind movies like Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. That gives the game a kind of timeless, painterly look. Not hyper-realistic or gritty, but very clean and expressive. Towns, forests, dungeons, even the world map have a kind of storybook style that makes it feel like a traditional fantasy adventure, but more personal. You play as a kid named Oliver, who gets pulled into a parallel fantasy world after a tragedy in his real life. That's the setup, and while it sounds simple, it works because it keeps the story focused. You're not saving the universe or dealing with 50 different political factions. It's mostly about Oliver trying to help others while figuring out how to fix what's broken in his own life. It's more personal than a lot of other RPGs from the same era. The combat system mixes real-time movement with turn-based commands. You control Oliver or one of his monster allies called familiars and can move around during battle while selecting abilities, spells, or attacks. You also manage your AI-controlled party members, so there's a layer of strategy in choosing the right team, assigning roles, and keeping an eye on cooldowns. The early hours are a bit slow in terms of combat depth, but it opens up nicely later. The familiar system is a big part of it, kinda like Pokemon, but not exactly. You collect creatures, evolve them, and assign them to different characters. Each one has strengths and weaknesses, and some are clearly better than others, so it's worth experimenting and upgrading the ones that work best for your team. There's also a bit of an old-school JRPG feel to how it plays. World maps, random encounters, kind of, and a good chunk of optional stuff to explore. But at the same time, it doesn't lean too hard into nostalgia. It's not a throwback, it stands on its own. Valkyria Chronicles. Valkyria Chronicles is one of the most unique RPGs on the PS3, and honestly, it's kind of in its own lane. It mixes turn-based strategy with third-person shooter mechanics, which might sound weird at first, but it actually works really well once you get the hang of it. The game's set in a fictional version of Europe during a war that's clearly inspired by World War II. You're following a small militia group from a neutral country called Xillia, who get dragged into this huge conflict between two bigger powers. The plot feels pretty grounded. It's not full of gods or massive fantasy empires. It's more like a war drama, with some light sci-fi elements layered in. There's a bit of anime-style storytelling in the way characters interact, but it balances personal stories with the bigger war stuff really well. But really, the core gameplay is what really sets it apart. It's not your usual grid-based tactics game. Instead, you plan your moves from a top-down map, but then actually take control of a character in real time. Aiming, running, shooting, and using cover, line of sight, and positioning like you would in a shooter. But you only get a limited number of moves per turn, and you've got to be smart about which units you move and how far you push. It's surprisingly tactical, but also really intuitive once it clicks. Each unit type, scout, sniper, lancer, shock trooper, engineer, etc., has a specific role, and success usually comes down to using them in the right situations, not just brute force. And permadeath is a thing if you don't save your downed soldiers in time, which adds real tension to some fights. If you mess up and leave someone exposed, they're gone. Now, the pacing can be a bit slow at times, especially with long dialogue scenes between battles, and some of the mission difficulty spikes can catch you off guard if you're not used to strategy games. But overall, it rewards smart play and lets you approach battles in multiple ways. It's not a traditional JRPG with leveling up through dungeons and big swords. This is more tactical, more grounded, and way more about positioning and planning. But it still has leveling, skill trees, weapon upgrades, and plenty of optional content if you dig into it. Dragon's Dogma, Dark Arisen. Dragon's Dogma isn't your typical RPG. It's got open world exploration, real-time action combat, and a few systems that are straight up unlike anything else out there. It came out in that awkward era where most RPGs were either going full Skyrim style or sticking to stripped JRPG formulas, and Dragon's Dogma kinda does neither. It just does its own thing. Combat is probably the first thing that'll grab you. It's not floaty or basic like older RPGs. It actually feels like you're controlling a character with weight. You can swing heavy swords, cast flashy spells, or even climb up giant monsters like a mini Shadow of the Colossus moment mid-fight. It doesn't matter if you're fighting a chimera, griffin, or some weird cursed undead beast, every encounter feels like its own little event because of how physical and unpredictable the combat is. And there's actually depth here. You've got classes or vocations that you can switch between: warrior, sorcerer, assassin, magic archer, etc. Each one plays super differently. You can be a dude with a giant hammer slamming into ogres, or a nimble rogue climbing up their backs and stabbing their weak spots. Spells are not just press button then wait animations. They feel chunky, slow to cast, but powerful as hell when they land. Fireballs light stuff on fire, ice spikes can freeze enemies, and giant tornadoes can clear a whole mob. The pawn system is, it's a little strange at first. You create a companion, your main pawn, who travels with you, learns from you, and fights by your side. Then you can also borrow pawns created by other players online. It's not multiplayer, but your pawn actually gets smarter the more they fight. They'll start learning enemy weaknesses, calling out strategies in battle, or warning you when things go south. It's like training your own little AI squad mate. It's not perfect, pawns can repeat the same lines a lot, but it makes the solo adventure feel a little more alive. The world of Gransys isn't massive, but it's dense and dangerous. There's not a ton of handholding, no mini-map waypoints telling you exactly where to go. You're expected to pay attention, learn the routes, and sometimes just stumble into stuff. You might leave a town to go do a quest and end up running from a dragon or ambushed by bandits in the middle of the night. And night in this game is actually dark, like can't see 2 feet in front of you without a lantern kind of dark. It adds tension, especially early on. Now, Dark Arisen is the definitive version. It includes the original game, plus a huge extra area called Bitter Black Isle. That part's no joke. It's like the game's version of a dungeon crawl from hell. Tougher enemies, tighter spaces, and way more loot. It's built for high-level players, so once you finish the main story, that's where the real endgame grind begins. The story, okay, fair warning, it's a little vague and it doesn't hit you over the head with constant cutscenes, but there is a deeper mystery behind your character, the Arisen, the dragon, and what's really going on in the world. It builds slowly, and there's a final twist that actually makes you rethink a lot of what you've seen. Visually, it's aged alright. The remaster brings in smoother performance and sharper textures, but you're still dealing with some stiff animations and old school UI. But the world design, creature animations, and combat effects still carry it. Bottom line, if you like action RPGs with real gameplay meat, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen holds up. It's not as flashy or polished as newer open world games, but it has systems that still feel fresh today. It's a game that respects your time, but also expects you to figure stuff out. And if you're okay with that, it's got a lot to offer. And with the sequel finally out, going back to this one makes more sense than ever. Tales of Xillia. First off, this was the game where the Tales series finally felt like it grew up a bit. Not that it dropped all its anime vibes or charm, that's still here, but Xillia had a more grounded tone in parts. Dual protagonist system that added replay value, and a faster, snappier combat system than the older ones. It felt like it was trying to hit that middle ground between old school fans and people who were getting into JRPGs around the PS3 era. The big hook here is you get to choose your main character at the start. Jude, the kind-hearted martial arts student, or Milla, this mysterious woman who's basically the human form of a godlike spirit. Their paths overlap a lot, but they also see different sides of the story, especially early on. So depending on who you pick, you get slightly different cutscenes and perspectives, and it's actually worth replaying with the other lead to catch all of it. Now let's talk combat, because honestly, this is where the game shines the most. Tales of Xillia uses the linear motion battle system, but they really sped things up here. Movement feels smooth. Linking attacks between characters is a big mechanic, and every character plays super differently. Jude is all about quick punches and dodging, while Milla summons elemental spells that can lock down enemies. You can also link with another party member in battle, and when you do that, they'll support you in real time and help pull off flashy combo finishers. What's nice is that this combat system feels rewarding without being too complicated. It's got depth, sure. You've got arts, AC gauges, skill loadouts, the works, but you can also jump in, mash a little, and still pull off cool moves without reading a manual. And it's one of those systems where the more you experiment, the better it gets. Story-wise, it's kind of a mix. There's political tension, spirit world, moral questions about technology versus nature, and the usual JRPG world-ending threat. But Xillia handles it in a way that feels personal. The characters are dealing with huge stuff, yeah, but also their own internal conflicts. Milla, for example, starts off super confident and borderline robotic, like, I am the Lord of Spirits, I got this. But as the story goes on, she starts questioning things and becomes way more human. Jude, on the other hand, starts off kinda soft and unsure, and slowly grows into someone who actually takes charge. That whole dual character arc makes the journey feel more balanced. It's also not 100 hours long. You can finish the main story in like 35-40 hours depending on how much side stuff you do, and that makes it feel more focused compared to some RPGs that go on forever. There's gear, crafting, skill trees, all that stuff is here, but it's not bloated. You're not buried in systems just for the sake of it. Tales of Vesperia. Alright, now Tales of Vesperia. This one's kind of a classic for fans of the series, and for good reason. It dropped back in the Xbox 360 era first, which was weird for a JRPG, then came to PS3 with extra stuff, and eventually got that definitive edition on newer platforms. But the PS3 version was a pretty big deal in Japan. It added more story scenes, a whole extra party member, and just made the game feel more complete. So, right out the gate, Vesperia just feels good. It's got this clean, almost watercolor-like anime art style that doesn't try too hard to be realistic, which actually helps it age better than a lot of other RPGs from that time. The world is colorful, the characters pop, and the cutscenes are a nice mix of in-engine and animated ones. It gives the whole game this warm, stylized look that still looks solid even now.
The weather sure changed in a hurry.
Let's find an inn before we get soaked.
But honestly guys, the real hook is Yuri Lowell, the main character. He's honestly one of the best JRPG leads out there. Not your usual wide-eyed teenager trying to be a hero. Yuri's older, experienced, and already kinda over the whole corrupt government thing when the game starts. He's sarcastic, laid back, but also serious when it matters. He's not afraid to bend the rules if he thinks it'll help people. And yeah, that includes doing some pretty dark stuff that most RPG protagonists wouldn't even consider. It makes the whole journey feel a little more grounded, more personal, even when the story gets bigger. The story starts off pretty local, just Yuri trying to help someone in his neighborhood, but it slowly expands into this whole thing about magical technology, ancient weapons, environmental damage, and the usual world-threatening crisis. But the pace is what makes it work. You're not hit with a lore dump at the start, it builds gradually, so by the time the big stuff happens, you actually care about the world and the people in it.
Yuri?
Flynn must have stood on this spot earlier and looked out at the same scene.
That's true. His duties do take him to many different places.
Now let's talk combat, because Vesperia was a big leap forward at the time. It's action-based like all Tales games, but here, it really feels responsive. You're in full control of your character, dodging, comboing, using artes, which are basically special attacks, chaining combos, and even doing big finishers called mystic artes once you unlock them. It's fast, it's fun, and it feels like a proper real-time battle system, not just button mashing. As the game goes on, you unlock skills that change how your combos work, so you can customize your playstyle a ton. Want to go all in with melee attacks? Cool. Prefer casting spells from a distance? That works too. And switching characters mid-fight is smooth, so you can really experiment. And honestly, for a PS3 game, it's pretty generous with content. You've got a good 50, 60 hours of story depending on how much you explore, and even more if you go after the optional stuff like secret bosses or titles for each character, which act kinda like achievements. There's no pointless grind or huge open world bloat. It's focused, but big enough to keep you busy. Nier.
Why does every book I read have a bad attitude?
Yeah, I know some folks only really jumped in with Nier Automata, but the original Nier on PS3? That game was doing some wild stuff way before anyone noticed. At first glance, it looks like a regular action RPG. You're this gruff, older dude trying to save his sick daughter, which is already a pretty different angle compared to the usual teen anime protagonist stuff. But then, the more you play, the more the game starts messing with you, switching camera angles mid-gameplay, turning into a text adventure out of nowhere, and straight up changing genres mid-dungeon. It's all over the place in the best way. The world is bleak but weirdly charming. You've got talking books, giant shadow monsters, and some surprisingly deep side quests that aren't just filler. They actually hit pretty hard sometimes. Like one moment you're helping someone with a simple errand, and next thing you know, you're in a depressing story about loss or regret. It's not afraid to go there. Now, to be real, the gameplay itself isn't amazing. Combat feels a little janky and the visuals were rough even back then. But the writing? That's where it hits. It slowly peels back this bigger mystery behind everything. And when you finish the game and go back for the second playthrough, it straight up changes how you see the story. You get new scenes, hear what enemies were thinking, and suddenly the stuff you thought was black and white becomes way more gray. It's kinda genius.
My body.
Yeah, I know.
This one didn't sell much at launch, but the people who stuck with it, they never shut up about it. And honestly, for good reason. It's not polished, but it's one of those games that sticks with you way after it's over. Just be ready for some awkward menus and clunky combat. It's worth it for the story alone. Fallout New Vegas. If you've only played the newer Fallout games, like 4 or 76, you might be surprised by how different New Vegas feels. It's not trying to be flashy, the shooting's kinda stiff, the graphics were dated even when it came out, and yeah, it's buggy, like save often kinda buggy. But once you settle in, man, this game just gets it when it comes to player choice and world building. You're not some chosen one or a vault savior here, you're literally just a courier who got shot in the head and somehow lived. That's it. And from there, it's totally up to you how the story goes. You can side with the big military group, go full chaos with Caesar's Legion, take over everything for yourself, or just disappear into the desert doing side quests. The game doesn't shove one path down your throat, it lets you be who you want. And the writing was actually way better than people give it credit for. Every faction has pros and cons. Nobody's completely right or wrong, and that's what makes it interesting. You start seeing how messed up things really are no matter which side you're on. Like even the good guys have dirt under their nails. There's also this weird charm to the world. It's grimy and broken, but it's full of personality. You'll meet Elvis impersonators, robots with cowboy accents, gamblers, raiders, weirdos in lab coats, and most of it feels like it belongs there. It's funny, sad, awkward, smart, all at the same time. Gameplay-wise, yeah, it's a little janky. The combat isn't great, but it works. The strength here is how much freedom you get. You want to go sneak around with a knife, blow stuff up with grenades, or talk your way through everything, it's all possible. New Vegas might not look like much now, but it's one of those RPGs that gives you real choices, real consequences, and makes every playthrough feel different. You're not just playing a game, you're writing your own version of the story every time. Eternal Sonata. Now this is a JRPG where the whole thing takes place inside the dream of the composer Frédéric Chopin. Yeah, that's Chopin, the guy who wrote all those piano pieces you've probably heard in old cartoons or YouTube lo-fi mixes. In the game, he's on his deathbed, and everything you play is basically him dreaming while he's slipping away. Sounds odd, but once you settle into it, it actually makes a lot of sense. Visually, it's super colorful and soft looking, almost like a moving painting. Characters wear flashy, whimsical outfits, and the towns and forests feel like something out of a storybook. Everything's a little magical, but not in a wizard school kind of way. More like a dream world where things almost feel real, but still float just above reality.
There's so many people living in Retardondo. Why won't any of them buy from me?
The character names are all based on music stuff, like you're running around with people named Polka and Allegretto. It's kinda silly at first, but you get used to it fast. And honestly, that's the charm. Combat's probably where most people get hooked. It's not the usual slow, menu-based fighting. You still take turns, but there's this action part to it. You move your character in real time your attacks, block hits if you press the button at the right moment. It feels more like you're doing something than just watching numbers go up. So yeah, Eternal Sonata is kind of a hidden gem from the PS3 era. It's not a huge budget RPG with a million systems or an edgy plot, but it's creative, heartfelt, and just different. It's got its quirks, some of the dialogue's clunky and the themes can feel a bit heavy-handed, but it's trying to do something meaningful. And if you're in the mood for a fantasy RPG that isn't just the usual swords and kingdom setup, this one really sticks with you. Resonance of Fate. Okay, Resonance of Fate is one of those games where if you saw a clip of the combat without knowing anything, you'd probably think, yo, what the hell is this stylish madness? And honestly, that's fair. It's one of the most bizarre and unique RPGs to ever drop on PS3, and I don't say that lightly. It doesn't play like any other RPG out there, like at all. So, the game takes place in this towering mechanical city built into a massive structure called Basel. The Earth's basically messed up, and humanity now lives inside this vertical, clockwork-like world that feels part steampunk, part industrial hellscape. It's cold, metal, and weirdly beautiful at the same time. The world design doesn't go for big, flashy fantasy or colorful anime towns. It's more grounded, like some forgotten part of a Final Fantasy game stretched out into its own thing.
Another monster about to strike.
Freeze time. And I picked this one.
You play as this trio, Zephyr, Vacheron, and Leanne, a ragtag group of gun-for-hire types. The story? It's complicated, and to be honest, the plot doesn't explain much up front. It slowly drops lore bits and character backstory as you go, and for a lot of players that's either kinda cool or super frustrating. It feels like you're dropped into a world that already exists, and you're just figuring stuff out through missions, side chatter, and weird events that hint at something bigger going on. So, if you're expecting the usual save the world arc with a clear villain and emotional speeches, yeah, this ain't that. But let's talk about the real star of the show, the combat. This is where Resonance of Fate just goes crazy bad shit. It's turn-based, but it's also real-time, kinda. You don't swing swords or cast fireballs, you dive, flip, and gun blast your way through fights like you're in a John Wick anime. You build something called resonance points by running characters across the battlefield in dramatic, slow-mo action movie moves, and then you cash in those points to chain together absolutely absurd combos that have you flipping through the air in trench coats, unloading pistols and SMGs at robot enemies. It's honestly hard to explain in words. It's like part strategy game, part turn-based system, and part just full-blown stylish chaos. It's hard at first, the game doesn't really teach you much, and the learning curve is a wall. But once you get it, it feels amazing. It's deep, strategic, and flashy in a way no other RPG really tries. And it never gets old seeing your character dive sideways in slow motion while unloading an entire clip into some enemy's face. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Skyrim is basically the game that redefined what people think of when they hear open world RPG. Even folks who don't play games that much still know it. It became kind of a cultural thing. Like, everyone has that one story of getting lost in the woods, getting attacked by a bear, then getting distracted by a cave, then ending up stealing a sweet roll in town and having to run from the guards. That's just how Skyrim is built. You start off as this prisoner, of course, it's a tradition at this point, and right from the jump, a dragon shows up and wrecks everything. From there, you're let loose into this giant snowy land called Skyrim, and the game barely tells you what to do. You've got a main quest, sure, where you find out you're the Dragonborn, someone with the power to absorb dragon souls and shout magic words that can knock people off cliffs. But honestly, most players barely even touch that at first. You're too busy picking flowers, chasing side quests, joining a guild, or just following a butterfly for half an hour. The world is packed. You can wander in any direction and stumble onto a dungeon, a bandit camp, a haunted crypt, a weird shrine, a talking dog. Seriously, it's got that go anywhere, do anything vibe, where you feel like the world is alive and full of secrets. That's what people really loved about it. It's not about being guided, it's about just wandering and writing your own story as you go. Now yeah, It's janky. It was janky back then, and it's still janky now. NPCs walk into walls, quests break, dragons fly backwards sometimes, but honestly, that became part of the charm. It's almost expected. And the modding scene? Insane. People turned it into whatever they wanted. Prettier, harder, weirder, whatever. That kept it alive for years. Like, Skyrim is still being played today because of how deep the modern community went. At the end of the day, Skyrim isn't about polish or perfect writing. It's about freedom and exploration. It's one of those rare games where your playthrough might be completely different from someone else's. You're not just playing a story, you're kind of building your own along the way. That's why people still go back to it. Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 didn't just level up from the first game, it straight up transformed the whole vibe of the series. If the first game was this ambitious space RPG with some clunky parts, Mass Effect 2 was like BioWare sat down, trimmed the fat, turned up the polish, and basically like, hey, let's make this thing hit hard. Emotionally, visually, and in gameplay. Right off the bat, they kill you. Like, not even kidding, first 10 minutes, boom! Commander Shepard's dead. But then you wake up 2 years later, brought back to life by this shady organization called Cerberus. You don't really trust them, but hey, space is falling apart. Whole colonies are vanishing, and someone's gotta deal with it.
You could have trained an entire army for what you spent to bring me back.
You're unique.
The game then kicks into full-on suicide mission mode. You spend most of it building a team. Not just any crew, but probably one of the most memorable RPG squads ever made. You got people like Garrus, the sharpshooter bro who's always got your back. Thane, a dying assassin who talks like a space poet. Jack, chaotic biotic energy with a shaved head and a tragic past. Mordin, a fast-talking scientist who sings opera. And honestly, the list goes on. Every character isn't just there, they've got their own problems, backstories, and full missions just to earn their loyalty. And you want to do those missions, not because the game says so, but because these people start to feel real. The loyalty missions were peak RPG design. They're like mini episodes of a TV show, each one showing a different side of the world, the characters, or even Shepard. One minute you're helping someone reconnect with a long-lost kid, next you're storming a prison ship or trying to stop a blood feud. It's tight, it's focused, and it all builds up to the big finale.
Keep it up!
Hurry, Shepard.
And if you played the first game, all your decisions carry over. Who lived, who died, how you handled certain missions, it all feeds into this one. It made your save file feel like this living history. And that was wild at the time. Bottom line is, Mass Effect 2 isn't just one of the best PS3 RPGs, it's one of the best any console RPGs. It hits you with smart design, unforgettable characters, real choices, and the story that just grabs you by the collar and doesn't let go. Even now, all these years later, it holds up. And honestly, might even hit harder now because you realize how rare games like this really are. Dragon Age Origins. So, Dragon Age Origins is BioWare doing what they do best, building a world that actually feels alive and letting you shape how everything plays out through choices that actually matter. But unlike their sci-fi Mass Effect stuff, this one's all high fantasy. Kings, elves, dwarves, darkspawn crawling out of the ground, the whole medieval mess. But even though the setting sounds kinda typical at first, the way it's done is what sets it apart. You play as a Grey Warden, which is basically this ancient order of monster hunters who are the only ones who can stop this massive blight. And when I say blight, I mean this army of twisted creatures led by a corrupted godlike dragon. So yeah, bad stuff. But the cool part? The story isn't just about about fighting evil. It's about politics, betrayal, survival, and trying to pull together a messed up kingdom that's falling apart.
The events at Ostagar still haunt my thoughts.
But here's the real hook. The game literally starts different depending on your background. Like if you play as a human noble, your story starts in a castle with your family being wiped out. If you're a dwarf, you're dealing with underworld politics and betrayals. An elf, you're stuck in a poor alienage or a Dalish forest tribe. These aren't just cosmetic changes either. They seriously affect how people treat you, what quests you get, and how your story plays out.
Dawn have changed. They're smart now. They destroyed the Legion.
Visually, it's definitely aged, let's be honest. The animations are stiff, textures are muddy, and it's not winning any beauty contests today. But the atmosphere still hits. The music, the tone, the art style, it all gives off this grim but grounded medieval vibe. And the world building? Solid. You learn about the Chantry, their religious system, the Templars and mages constantly clashing, the caste system in Dwarven society, elven oppression. It doesn't treat the fantasy world like a fairy tale. It's dirty, unfair, political, feels lived in. And when it comes to choices, dude, this game doesn't hold your hand. Do you kill a kid who's possessed to save a town? Do you let someone sacrifice themselves or step in and do it yourself? Do you support a noble who might be worse than the villain? These aren't just good versus evil either. Sometimes both options suck. And that's where Dragon Age Origins shines. It makes you feel the gray areas. The consequences aren't just immediate, they play out later in the story. Valkyria Chronicles II. So right off the bat, this is a smaller, more contained game. It's not a full-blown cinematic console experience like the first one. It's on handheld, and you can feel it. That doesn't mean it's bad, just different. Instead of a grand war against an invading empire, VC2 shifts the focus to a more personal story, set inside a military academy. Yeah, like a school, with students. It's almost like Fire Emblem mixed with anime high school drama, which is a big pivot from the first game's serious wartime tone.
But your brother, Leon Hardens, has passed away.
You play as Avon, a loud, kind of goofy kid who joins the academy after his brother dies under mysterious circumstances. He's not your typical war hero type. He jokes around, he gets into dumb arguments with his classmates, and honestly, it takes a while for him to grow on you. But as the game goes on, you start seeing more of the story unravel. Stuff about class divisions, rebellion, corruption within the ranks, and the weight of responsibility these young cadets are forced to carry. So yeah, it gets heavier than it looks at first glance. Gameplay-wise, it's still got that unique blitz system. You move units like it's a third-person shooter, but it's all turn-based underneath. Positioning, line of sight, cover, AP, it all matters. But the mission design is chopped into small, bite-sized maps now. Instead of one big battlefield, fights are split into linked areas, which was likely done to fit PSP limits. It's not as epic, but it's still fun, especially once you start unlocking new classes and experimenting with your squad. The story does get more serious as it goes, especially when the rebel faction kicks into gear and the stakes rise. There are deaths, there are betrayals, there are moments where the tone shifts hard and reminds you, oh right, we're still at war. But the pacing can feel uneven, like whiplash between goofy dorm scenes and sudden tragedy. It's not always smooth.